Okay, next thing we have to do is look very carefully at the Greek behind the question English translation of the story and ask ourselves, how is this being translated? Traditory, traditory. All translations are betrayals. Because whenever you move the language, you necessarily change the meaning. You don't read Greek, and that's okay, but we're going to have to look at this parable through 3 different English translations side by side. How does that sound? And I'll show you the problems. So the first version we're going to look at, we're going to put them all parallel. Look up on the screen. First is the 1611 King James Version of Matthew 20, verse 1. We'll also look at the 1952 Revised Standard Version of Matthew 20, verse 1. And we'll look at the 1989 New Revised Standard Version of Matthew 20, verse 1. So the 1611 authorized, whose version? The King James Version. A man that is a householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. 1952 RSV. A householder who went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. This is one of the criticisms of the RSV, by the way. It's very slavish to the King James Version. But then the new, that's why you need a new Revised Standard Version, right? NRSV, 1989. A landowner. See the difference? Who went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. Take a look at the King James Version word householder, repeated by the RSV, but changed by the NRSV, instead has landowner. The actual Greek is oikodespote, which literally means a house master or a house despot, right? Just talking about that with Vinny over here. The RSV's landowner is probably legitimate because ancient writers used oikodespote in that sense. Let's move along to verse 2. Look at those for a moment. King James Version, and when he had agreed with the laborers for a penny a day. Ooh. A penny a day. That's the English penny, by the way. That's what they paid people back then, in English pennies? Well, that was the usual daily wage in 1611, Shakespearean times. RSV 1952, after agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day. Okay, now we're not even translating, we're just dropping the Greek word in. 1989 New Revised Standard Version, after agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, which is also in our New American Bible that I read from earlier. So look at the King James Version, a penny a day. Holy smokes, that is messed up. At least it's messed up for our impression nowadays. 1611 translators are thinking of their old English penny. 1611, that was the usual daily wage for unskilled manual laborers. Oops. The Greek actually says denariu, which the RSV renders literally as denarius. A denarius was silver in Roman coinage, but denarii, that's plural for denariu or denarius, existed outside of Rome. Some were made of copper, some were made of bronze, and they had varying values. The NRSV has translated denariu as the usual daily wage. They did that because people today don't have a clue what that value was. But we're going to have to be much more careful than the RSV's very clumsy rendering, and we're going to see why momentarily. Let's move to verse 3. Here we have a time reference. King James Version, he went out about the 3rd hour. In 1952 RSV, and going out about the 3rd hour. 1989 NRSV, when he went out about 9 o'clock. Wow, that's a big difference. 3rd hour, 9 o'clock. Look, the NRSV is trying to help us modern readers. We don't think of the day beginning at 6 a.m. as the 1st hour, 9 a.m. as the 3rd hour, 12 noon is being, right, in watches, right, throughout the night, and the 6 p.m. is the 12th hour and all that. We don't think of it like that. So just put in 9 o'clock. Moving right along. Oops. Verse 13, but he answered one of them, the King James Version, and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny? 1952 RSV, but he replied to one of them, Friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? 1989 NRSV, but he replied to one of them, Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? They all have friend. That's the key word I want you to look at here. All translations render the Greek hetare as friend. That's a real doozy of a problem in translation, because hetare doesn't really, it means friend. It's perfectly fine to use that to a child. But if you call a grown-up man hetare, that's real bad. So a better translation would be something like punk. But all three translations miss that. It's demeaning, derogatory. When hetare is used for a child, it is positive. It's like a friendly address that a honor superior, an adult, would use of a boy. To give you the idea of what hetare means when one male, adult male, calls another adult male hetare, we have a modern equivalent. Imagine if you go up to if you're a Anglo-American, and you go up to an African-American and call him boy.
Problem.
That is what hetare connotes. It's demeaning, patronizing, degrading.
You can argue the same way if you call another person your age son or something like that.
Yeah, right. How you use that, if you're using it in the context of the song Soul from the great prophetic show Boondocks, to call your brother son, the story that's just begun, okay, I love that, then it's fine. But if you're, hey, listen, son, I'm not your son. What do you mean by that? Yeah, it's very demeaning, patronizing, literally patronizing. To call a male adult hetare is insulting in the extreme. That's missed in all three translations. Friend cannot be the proper translation of hetare. We have all kinds of evidence from antiquity showing the proper use of hetare with children and the denigrating and insulting use of hetare with adults. This landowner could not possibly be saying, look, friend. He's not meaning like that. He's saying,
calling him up.
Right, exactly. You're having a confrontation. Look, punk.
Right.
Something like twerp.
Yeah.
Little piece of That's what he's calling him.
Right. You get what I give you.
Exactly. That's what you deserve. I tell you what you deserve. 1611 King James Version, 1952 Revised Standard Version, NRSV, 1989. Verse 15. Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil because I am good? That's the KJV. The Revised Standard Version says, or do you begrudge my generosity? NRSV, or are you envious because I'm generous? That's what our New American Bible for the Catholics in here says. Envious. The King James Version gets this correct. The Greek ho ophthalmos su poneros literally says you have the evil eye. How many of you are wearing jewelry right now that has a protection against the evil eye? Latins? Anyone from the Middle East? Anybody? Does anyone here have any? Okay. Do you know Jesus wore that? He had a little purple fabric hanging from the tassel as a protection, the color of sky vault. That's a protection against the evil eye. When Jesus, the pre-Paschal Jesus, healed people, like the blind people, why did he spit? That's a protection against the evil eye.
Why doesn't say that in the Bible?
Doesn't. The author expects you to know that. It expects you to know auxiliary background information because it's not writing for Americans. It's writing for ancient Mediterraneans. I'm sorry?
I saw that in the Bible where he said spittle.
He spittle? Yeah, and he puts it on the man's eyes that were blind.
He uses spit.
Mud and spit, that's right. The spit does two things. It protects and possibly as a healing. Obviously, we're not talking about biomedical now, are we? Any nurses in here? Not really. But in this cultural consensus reality, blind people, see, they don't understand eyesight, folks. Let me explain why. Ancient people believed that the human heart was the source of light that came up through the body, out through the eyes at instantaneous speed. Not 186,292 miles per second. Instantaneous speed. Whatever that light touched, you see. They didn't understand optics. They didn't understand that light came in through the eye. That was a discovery that happened in the Middle East later. They didn't understand this at this time. They thought the eyes were made of fire. Aristotle and Jesus. The eye is the lamp of the body. So light comes out through the eyes. The light begins in your heart, shines out through your eyes like lanterns. Ancients did not know that light comes into the eye. They believed that the light originated in the human heart was either good light or bad light. If you're a blind person, by the way, you're emitting darkness out of your eyes because they didn't see darkness as the absence of light. They saw darkness as another kind of ray. If you have a wicked heart, then the light that comes out through your eyes and hits another person will damage them, hurt them, harm them, or even kill them. This is called the evil eye, and mal ojo, right? Anthropologists all over the world to this day can document the cultural syndrome that people literally get physically injured by the evil eye. That doesn't compute very well with our modern Western 20% of the world. But it's documented in anthropological medical journals. If you believe in the evil eye, it can affect you.
It's even the DSM, but they consider it a disorder or a mental disorder.
A cultural syndrome, exactly right. Talking about
The evil eye in the DSM?
Yeah, they talk about it for the Asians mostly, but it's also looking for other places.
Yeah.
Well, again, the Bible talks about the renewing of, the daily renewing of our mind. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's right. And the mind, they're not thinking of the brain, which they maybe think of as a coolant system for the head. That's about it. That's why the Egyptians pulled it out of the head and threw it away. Didn't know what its purpose was. The heart is the mind. Cardia and nous. That's where you meet God in your heart, right? Only God knows what's in your heart because these people are not only non-introspective, Americans, they're anti-introspective. They can't know what's inside them. If they get any of that knowledge, it's only because God, watch, has revealed it to them. Because God's breath is everywhere. His spirit is everywhere. The wind all around us. The landowner accuses the day laborers of having the evil eye. This means the landowner accuses them of having a bad heart. Envy is the root of the problem. That's why the NRSV and the NAB render it as envy. But that's an imperfect rendering because there's a lot more being implied, isn't it? That's not a part of our cultural world, but that's the world of Jesus, folks.